We are returning to our coverage of the death of California Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein.
She was the longest-serving female senator in history. Connecticut Democratic Senator Chris Murphy joins us now. Senator, talk to us about your experience working with Senator Feinstein. In particular, a lot of people are talking today about her efforts at gun control, an issue that is very central, I know, to your legislative passions.
So I won election to the Senate in November of 2012. A month later, the tragedy at Sandy Hook happened. So I showed up as a freshman senator knowing that my mission was to try to change America's gun laws to make sure that something like Sandy Hook never happened again. And of course, the first door that I knocked on in that effort was Dianne Feinstein's door, because for the 15 to 20 years leading up to Sandy Hook, Dianne Feinstein had really been a very lonely voice fighting the fight on behalf of tightening our nation's gun laws. Of course, I think you've probably talked about the fact that she, a year after getting to the Senate, passed an assault weapons ban. She reached out across the aisle and got Republicans to support it as well. But after it expired in 2004, nobody was really talking about the issue of gun violence. In fact, a lot of Democrats were told by their consultants that they would lose votes if they talked about guns. Dianne didn't listen. She knew that this was an issue of moral conscience, and she never stopped fighting on this issue of keeping our kids safe. And today we have a very robust anti-gun violence movement. We finally last year passed the first bill since the assault weapons ban of any significance on guns. And all of that happened only because of Dianne Feinstein, because of what she did in 1994, but really what she did after that. When nobody else would talk about guns, Dianne would, and she kept the movement alive for about 15 to 20 years. And for that, families all across the country are eternally grateful.
We keep talking about her legacy, and I wonder, looking at her immense career, what do you think her biggest accomplishment was?
Well, I mean, I think it is hard to beat that assault weapons ban, because it showed what was possible. For the next 10 years, we had a dramatic decline in the number of mass shootings in America. They went right back up after the bill expired, and her work to build the movement, I think, has allowed us to have these successes today. I think, to me, a close second is her work to hold the intelligence community accountable when she released that report that made clear the United States had been engaged in torture in some of our military operations overseas. I think that was a really defining moment for the country and for the world, to show that we were willing to be self-critical when we hadn't lived up to our values. That was a really tough moment for Dianne, but her willingness to speak truth to power, I think it breathed a lot of courage into other members of the Senate and the political class. That's a big part of her legacy as well.
Senator Murphy, I'm thinking about your example that, and so many others have repeated it, that she continued to fight to try and address gun violence at times when it wasn't popular, at times when there were legislative roadblocks up in her path, even from members of your own party. I'm wondering what she told you about how to address those frustrations in Congress.
So she was convinced that the conventional wisdom was wrong. So after 1994, when the assault weapons ban passes, the word goes out to Democrats that this is a politically polarizing issue, that you're on the wrong side of the American public if you work on the issue of guns. Dianne never believed that that was right. That's why she kept talking about it. And she kept on winning elections in California, even back when California used to elect more Republicans. And so what she told me when I got to Congress was, the NRA is not as powerful as people think they are. This issue is more powerful and more popular than the pundits will tell you. Have faith that if you keep working this issue, eventually the rest of our colleagues will come around to the reality, which is that there's a big wellspring of support if you take on the gun lobby. And if she hadn't been there to tell me that when I first got there, if she hadn't been there to tell others like me who wanted to work on this issue when they came to Congress, we wouldn't have been able to build this movement that today is pretty powerful. It was Dianne Feinstein's belief that the politics were wrong on this issue and that she was right, that allowed a lot of other people to end up following in her footsteps.
Senator, I know that other people have mentioned as well this moral authority that she brought in speaking on that issue in particular, given her own experience and how she first came to be in the national spotlight. I wonder if you could talk about that a bit more and the effect that that had in those kind of early debates when you talk about the assault weapons ban. Do conditions like that, could you foresee that happening again at this moment?
Well, I mean, let me just speak a little bit about Dianne's quiet strength. I mean, it seems like an odd word to apply to her because she wasn't quiet. She spoke out on lots of things that were important to her. But inside the Democratic caucus, we have private meetings twice a week. A lot of big issues get settled there. Dianne didn't speak at every meeting. And so when she spoke, people listened to her. I remember at one point we were talking about Saudi Arabia's involvement in the Yemen war and the killing of Khashoggi, and she had a relationship with the Saudis. She knew them, and so when she stood up and broke with them, were very strongly critical of them. People listened. If Dianne Feinstein was willing to take a stand, well, then you wanted to be with her. So I think when she spoke up, she was just one of a handful of senators that everybody listened to. And as to the second half of your question, yes, absolutely. We are going to ban assault weapons in this country. That will happen eventually because Dianne was right. The American public are on our side. 65% of Americans want a ban on assault weapons like the one that Dianne Feinstein passed years ago. And that movement she helped to build and keep alive, it is ultimately going to prevail, and that will be part of her legacy as well.
Senator Murphy, with you and a few others now holding the baton that she carried for so long, what measures are you hoping to pass on gun violence now?
Well, listen, I will take whatever we can get, but right now we're really thinking about universal background checks and reimposing that ban on assault weapons, or at least trying to get the age up to 21 to stop young people from buying assault weapons. But the good news is last year's bill, the 2022 Safer Communities Act, which included 5 big changes in gun laws, the whole thing was opposed by the NRA. Dianne played a big role in getting it passed. That bill is already having an impact. Violence rates across the country since we passed that bill are coming down. They've been going up over a 3-year period of time, but in the last 6 months, murder rates in American cities have been dropping. So we still need to pass new laws, but we actually should take a moment to stop and celebrate the fact that last year's law that Dianne helped pass is having an impact.
All right, Senator Chris Murphy. Senator, thank you very much for sharing your reflections with us.
Thank you.